And they acted like, now Carl, you turn
What?
that thing off.
So start back with so you grew up in
I love
Preston.
it.
Would you turn on this light here,
You
Blair?
grew up in Preston?
Yes.
And
Well-
your parents grew up in Preston as well.
Well, my mother was born down
All
in
right.
Utah.
All right, you can hold my hand if you want. You don't trust me.
You turn that thing off. I'm not.
So your parents grew up in too?
My dad was born in Oregon.
Okay.
I didn't know
And then they
that.
moved to Whitney. And homesteaded, if you know what homesteading was,
Yeah.
in Whitney.
And your mom was born where?
She was born in Parowan, Utah.
Okay.
That's a little teeny town, probably 100 miles south or more of Provo, wouldn't you say?
And how did they meet?
Well, my grandfather was a school teacher, and the church had him come up to be the superintendent of the what they call the academy here in Preston, and so
He brought,
yeah, and then they bought a farm in Whitney, and that's where Dad lived too. So
And how
Well, wait a
old was
minute.
Grandma when they did that? Do you remember?
she was 9 when they came
Oh.
into Preston.
in Whitney, not Winder. So they had your grandpa owned the farm in Whitney.
Yes.
Did your dad ever own land or anything over there in Whitney? That's where President Benson is from.
Oh.
When you see these farmers around here, that's how he learned to be the Secretary of Agriculture for
The U.S. government.
Have you got that
for
thing
the
turned
U.S.
off?
government. I can't tell.
Because I can talk better with that off.
So then
Well,
they,
now that was under the Eisenhower administration. Did you know that? President Benson was. Yeah. It was when I was on my mission. That was one of our things we would tell people if they didn't know anything about the Mormons and are they strange. We'd say it was. No, we've even got a Secretary of Agriculture in the Eisenhower administration for the government. But, yeah.
so then your parents met here in Preston
In Whitney.
and Whitney.
They call it. I don't know why they don't call that press. I mean, it's joined right to the hip. There's no separation line, is there? Does anybody know where the line is between Whitney and
Oh,
Preston?
I'm sure they do.
Well, they don't have any government or anything. Those people belong to the Preston government, don't they? Just like you do, even though the line is down half a block west.
Oh, you're out of the Preston line.
Half a block. Oh, yeah, half a block.
She's outside of city limits by about a half a block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then your parents lived where around here? Where were you raised?
Out of Winder. About 8 miles northwest of Preston.
And the house is still there.
We're going to go out and see that.
Oh, yeah.
That's where her mom and dad got married. They loaded up a wagon with some horses, went out there to homestead, and they didn't have.
It was already homesteaded. They bought it from
Oh.
the
What
man
did they
that
farm?
homesteaded it.
What did they farm up there?
No, they did.
What?
What did they farm?
Oh, what did they farm? Oh, wheat and hay mostly.
Uh-huh.
Alfalfa.
And he had dairy cattle.
Did they feed that all to the dairy cattle, or did they sell it? Some of it.
Didn't sell the hay. Of course, they sold the wheat.
Oh, they did.
A good share of it.
Yeah.
Then he had range cattle too.
How many of
And
those?
those are the ones you, no, it was the
No,
dairy
it was
cattle
the-
that you
it was
herded,
the milk
right?
cows that she had to take out to the. But tell her what you did to the killdeer. Killdeers to tantalize them.
Oh, they had that little nest on the ground, and so if I ever found the nest, they always, what they have, about four
Four
eggs
eggs,
in
I
the
think.
nest.
And you didn't like the killdeer? Or-
Well, I just had to
Like
have
to
something
tease 'em a
to
little.
do. And they always had the pointed end of the egg, you know, in.
Pointy egg
Yeah.
side in.
Well, I'd get off and I'd turn those around.
She'd get off her horse and turn the eggs around. And did you notice when he'd come back again?
They had them turned back. where they're supposed to be.
I wonder, isn't that strange? Do you think that had something? Do you think that affected the killdeers, how they could fly, or their orientation, or something?
What, the way they put their
The egg,
Yeah.
well, maybe it was more comfortable to sit on.
I think so. I think it was.
Maybe they could get.
Uncomfortable for the birds.
Oh, I'll bet you. I'll bet you. If you think about it, they could get them in closer, and there would be more warmth for the eggs by turning them
And probably soft.
Well,
the small end towards the center of the circle.
Well, that's why they had them.
Okay.
I'll be darned. Isn't that
But
odd?
if you ever found were close to the nest and hadn't found it, they would fly away a little ways, and then they'd make a noise and they'd act like they were hurt or something.
Drag a wing and carry on and try to lead you away from make
I'd
it.
think, oh boy, that's where the nest is, and I'd run there and they'd fly a little further away, and
Lead you away, huh?
when they got me away, well then they'd fly off somewhere, leave me.
How many siblings did you have?
Pardon?
How many siblings? Weren't there the 4 girls?
Yeah, but there were 5 of us at that time.
Oh.
But I was the cow herder.
You're the
Didn't your other sisters ever do that?
No,
No.
they did other things like the plowing and the mowing and things like that.
But you had to help milk them, though, didn't you?
Not until I was about, I don't know, 12 or 14, I guess.
Who did
Uh-huh.
it before then?
My dad and my older sisters.
So how old were you when you had to herd the cows?
Oh, I imagine 10, 12 years old.
My word.
Wow.
And you had to take them
Sure.
quite a long ways, too, didn't you?
No.
And sit with them all day long and then bring them back to get milked again, huh?
Well, they'd let me, now this was quite a thing, wasn't it? Bring them home at least 2 miles at noontime.
No
really?
The
kidding.
cows could rest and I could have something to eat, and then I took them back again.
Oh,
So
my
when
word.
did you do school? When did you, how did you do that? with
Oh,
school?
after school started, thank goodness I didn't have to do that anymore.
It was
Oh,
just,
that was
a
just in
summer.
the summer.
They'd pasture them so they didn't have to feed them mowed hay and stuff. They'd take them out and let them graze in the pasture.
Mm.
And then when it was wintertime, that's when they'd get to eat the hay. They'd mow the hay and put it up and stuff.
Mm.
And they used to have thrashers. You see these big combines nowadays that mow down the wheat, and it separates the wheat right out of the shell and everything, and spits out the straw. And well, back in those days, when she was a girl, they would have thrashing crews come to the farms.
And that's an interesting
First-
story about Grandma and how she had to feed all these thrashing crews.
Well, before the threshing crew, though, there was the header crews. They
What?
cut it and put it into stacks first.
Ah. So Grandma fed them too?
Yes.
Well, what? Now I've never totally understood this. Headers didn't they actually, were they in bundles or were they just a
No.
big loose stack?
It was It was a loose stack.
I
The
see.
header had an elevator thing on it, and then they had these wagons with the box on them
Yeah,
that would come along to the side of it, and that elevator would elevate it up into that.
but this was all horse drawn.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they had several of those header boxes, and when one was full, then another one would come along the side of the header,
Okay.
and then they'd take it over and put it into stacks. And
Okay.
then they'd wait for the thresher to come, so they'd thresh it.
And that was a big old steam engine that would roll in there and thrash it and get the wheat out of the ear or whatever you call that, and
The heads of 'em.
the heads. And then so they'd separate the wheat from the chaff, and would it separate? Would the chaff stay with the straw, or did it get somehow separated just through the process?
Oh, somehow or another, it was just the wheat that came out into the sacks.
But the straw would come out another end, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh.
Rex was asking me about that. He thought they bound it into sheaths, They did have what they called a binder, and it did make those sheaths. But what Dad had was what they called a header.
Huh. My gosh. That would have cost a lot to put twine around all these little sheath things, I would think. That's the way they would do that, I suppose. Huh. Boy.
And then after on this binder, after they made them, those sheaths, I guess, was about this big around,
Yeah.
with the twine around them. Then you'd stand them up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Huh.
I think they'd stand one in the middle and then put them around, just looked like a little teepee kind of,
Huh. You loved your horse, though. Tell them about your riding to school, how you and the girls would go.
Oh, we all three of us rode on the same horse.
3 on a horse? How'd you do that?
Well, one on the front, one in the middle, and one on the back.
What was your position?
I was in the middle,
Oh.
and I complained all the time. You know how a horseback kind of
Yeah.
sways in a little bit?
You got squished.
I got the squish.
Are these your 2 older sisters that would ride with you?
And were you the one directing the horse, or?
No.
Directing the horse.
No, my oldest sister did that, and then the one that's ill now, she sat on the back, and I think she carried the lunch bucket. And
How'd you feel about being the third of the third child there?
She was
well,
picked
you
on.
should try being the middle kid.
Yeah.
They're the ones that get all the whippings. My 2 older sisters didn't want me, and the 2 younger ones didn't want me, and there I was.
That isn't the way they talk when I've met them. Maybe it was a little different in the old days. I don't know.
You think I'm exaggerating a little bit? Well, if you've got that thing turned on, I'll make it just as good as I want to.
So then you would ride the horse to school year round? In the winter and in the warmer times?
Yes.
And I can't remember what you did with the horse while you were in school. Did you just tie it up and it waited
Well,
there?
Sometimes we would just turn it loose and let it go back home.
Go for it.
Really?
And then Dad would bring it down for us to ride back home again.
It would be smart enough to know how to get home.
Mhm.
I'll be darned. So then he'd ride another horse and lead it down?
Mm.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. My
Now,
gosh.
how far away from the school were you?
Well, when I went, we were only 3/4 of a mile.
Was it uphill both ways though?
Not so much.
In
Not
snow.
quite. But when Harriet started the school, it was about 2.5 miles.
Oh. You didn't go to that school?
No,
Okay. Huh. Wow. And how many grades were and how many students out there in Winder?
well, there were 8 grades, but I can't tell you just how many students. We'll say there was 4 to a grade.
Something like that, yeah.
Wow, so it was a really small school.
So was there a teacher for each grade, or you just
Oh no, when we started, there was 2 teachers.
for all 8 grades?
This is like first grade through
Yeah.
ninth grade, or like
8th
or-
grade.
Huh?
There's 8
Eight.
grades.
first to eighth. I mean, yeah.
And then where did you go for high school?
In Preston here.
Came
And
down
how big
Preston.
was that?
How many students?
Uh-huh. In each grade.
I don't know. Our class, when it graduated, that would only be a fourth of them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was over 100.
When I graduated, there were like 123
Hmm.
in my senior class.
Hmm.
I think there was over 100 when I graduated.
Did you? Now, Grandpa went to Preston High School too, right?
No,
No?
he didn't.
He didn't?
No, Mother did, but I don't think Dad did. All I knew of Dad going there was before he went on his mission.
But you
went
mean
there
my
for-
dad?
I'm talking about Paul.
Your husband.
Oh, Paul. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Did you know him at all at that point?
No,
No.
He was older.
He was how much older is he? Was he than you?
5.5 years.
So how did you meet him?
Well, we used to have a dance hall here in town that was called the Persiana Dance Hall.
Uh-huh.
And if you didn't have a date, you went anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then these guys, they'd ask you to dance with them, and that's where I met him.
Oh.
How old were you?
When I went,
When you met him?
about 21.
They'd come from all over the valley to that place. I mean, Lamar talked about coming up to the Persiana and Don and different guys in Richmond.
Coming to
Find the Preston.
girls, huh?
Yeah. They had a funny dance system. What wasn't there something about dance cards or?
Oh, yes, yes. We had a dance card, and so the guys would come and ask you what dance they could have, and you'd write it on your card, and you'd write it on his card, and
Oh, really?
so you knew who you were going to dance with. You didn't dance with the same guy all evening.
But it was
So you just danced with him
pre-assigned
once.
beforehand, or
What?
it was assigned beforehand somehow, or?
Oh, yeah, we kind of,
During the dance, they go float around and